Did everything that Hong Kong endured in 2019 stem from the proposal to amend the Fugitive Offenders Ordinance? Was the impact of the violence limited to the livelihood of ordinary people? The answer in both instances is no. The name Chan Tong Kai was soon forgotten by the protesters. What Hong Kong endured was catastrophic. A number of intertwined forces were behind the violent protests in Hong Kong. At the forefront of the violence in the streets were the radical protesters, along with others who were simply dissatisfied with the status quo. Behind them were the anti-China forces in the West. Acting between the two forces were secretive intermediaries, represented by Jimmy Lai, Martin Lee, Anson Chan, and Albert Ho. Entrepreneur Jimmy Lai, the founder of media group Next Digital, has long been a sponsor of anti-China activities in Hong Kong, using the media under his control to incite political protests. Martin Lee, the founding chairman of the Hong Kong Democratic Party, fled to the United States during the Amendment Bill disturbances amid accusations that he had incited the violence. Former Chief Secretary Anson Chan, who helped to plan and instigate the protests, received regular donations from Jimmy Lai to fund the creation of anti-China chaos in Hong Kong. Albert Ho, chairman of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements in China, is known to have been working for the U.S. intelligence service to promote U.S. interests. The four instigated the rioting, working with youth leaders including Joshua Wong and Nathan Law. They also colluded to mislead international public opinion by spreading distorted information. During the 2014 Occupy Central incident in Hong Kong, the media had disclosed emails proving that Jimmy Lai had provided funding to the men known as the Three Clowns of Occupy Central, namely Benny Tai, Chan Kin Man, and Reverend Chu Yu Ming. The emails also revealed donations he had made to Joseph Zin, Anson Chan, Martin Lee, and others. Jimmy Lai has also made regular donations to political parties in the U.S., all of which have been handled by his assistant, Mark Simon. Mark Simon is a former CIA agent. Lai is reliant on Simon for maintaining his contacts in the U.S. Since 2003, when he became a senior executive at Lai's Next Digital, Simon has been responsible for transferring more than 20 donations to American political parties. Whenever there is unrest in Hong Kong, invariably activists from the region meet in secret with prominent individuals in the U.S. This also happened at the time of the Amendment Bill riots. In March 2019, Anson Chan traveled to the U.S. at the invitation of the U.S. National Security Council. She publicly stated to Vice President Mike Pence that the United States has every right to question Hong Kong's human rights and the one country, two systems policy. In May, Martin Lee went to the U.S. and met Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. In July, Jimmy Lai also met Vice President Pence and Secretary of State Pompeo, as well as several Republican senators. During the visit, he had an article published in the New York Times in which he wrote, "For the West to prevail, it must support the tiny little corner of China, where its virtues now operate, Hong Kong."
Which is fighting the same war you have with China.
Anyone familiar with American politics knows that the National Security Council, as the U.S. President's advisory body responsible for national security, military, and diplomatic affairs, is the brain behind U.S. attempts to subvert other governments. Following each of the U.S. visits by Anson Chan, Martin Lee, Jimmy Lai, and others, there was an immediate and noticeable upsurge in the violence in Hong Kong. Young people formed the vanguard of the Hong Kong protests. Generally naive, credulous, impulsive, and blindly obedient, they were used as kindle by those intent on transforming Hong Kong into a political inferno. According to Hong Kong media reports, 7 members of Jimmy Lai's family hold British passports. While other young people became embroiled in the street violence, he ensured that none of his own children were involved. On August the 3rd, the Hong Kong protesters launched what they called the Mong Parade. This involved gathering illegally at night outside the Tsim Sha Tsui police station, causing a disturbance and lighting a fire. Amid the escalating violence in the streets, the Hong Kong media revealed that Martin Lee, Jimmy Lai, and others were secretly meeting an American named Christian Whiton, a senior consultant for strategy and trade at the U.S. Center for the National Interest. In early June, Whiton had published an article, Why Taiwan is America's Best Asset Against China. Its aim was to incite support in the West for Taiwan's independence. The article's publication coincided with the amendment riots in Hong Kong, and Whiton sensed another opportunity to attack China.
Causing this crisis for the Chinese Communist Party, for the government, at a time when we're, frankly, at a difficult point in negotiations. This is good for U.S. national interest.
On August the 6th, Anson Chan, Joshua Wong, Nathan Law, and other prominent figures in the protest met secretly with an American, Julie Ida. According to publicly available information, Julie Ida is the political counselor at the U.S. Consulate General in Hong Kong. However, her diplomatic career suggests she is a specialist in subversion, with expertise in handling international crises while maintaining a low key. Her department regularly publishes reports discrediting the human rights record of the Chinese mainland in Hong Kong.
I think that the Hong Kong situation is not an isolated incident, but it has to be viewed in the context of all the attacks that are being launched by the West against China. You know, the Huawei case, of course, the sanctions.
Behind the Hong Kong chaos are a number of shadowy figures. Working hand in glove with outside forces, they have actively recruited, sponsored, and protected the protesters who have led the Hong Kong violence. They have made it their mission to destroy Hong Kong's prosperity and stability, even at the cost of the present and future well-being of the Hong Kong people. The chaos and violence that started in June last year is the direct result of the actions of these shadowy figures, who have no respect for the rule of law or love for the homeland. This is the Hong Kong that has been betrayed by local agitators.